Murphy at Murtech.com with your daily news update. Okay, here we are on March the 28th in the year of our Lord 2026, and I've got a ton of information here for you tonight. Let me go ahead and click Murtech on Rumble. Take you over here to my Rumble channel. This is the live stream we're talking about tonight, episode 1870. Let's go ahead and jump into that. Let me pause this. Hi, Debbie BS. Glad you could join us. Thank you so very much for your chat. Let's slide down here and click the Show More button to expand out the description box. Okay, we have information from American Center for Law and Justice, ACLJ, Anthony Bryan Logan, Glenn Beck, and X22 report. All right, let's go ahead and slide down here and give a shout out here to Cred Pilled. Just started following my channel. Debbie BS reposted my episode 1869. Viper Senior and Just Me VLT commented on my episode 1869. Debbie BS commented on my extra 652A and 652B. And Debbie BS and Cotton Ball 31 commented on my extra 652C. So thank you very much for reposting my videos. And thank you for your comments. I enjoy reading your feedback, and I definitely appreciate your support. So let me give this a thumbs up. Boom. There we go. Also, folks, if you could give me a thumbs up on this video right here below where you're watching, if you could slide down and poke it or click it with your mouse, that would be great. Okay, let's see what American Center for Law and Justice, Sekulow, has to say about Tulsi opens investigation into massive 2024 election plot. Okay, well, let's check this out. See what that's all about.
Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence. She has been a friend of ours, was a colleague of ours, contributor to this show for a number of years before she was given that position. What I like about her is that it feels like no stones are left unturned. It doesn't matter how many years ago we're going to go back, and this one isn't that many years ago. We're going back just to the 2024 election, and a report that come out from our friends at Just the News saying that there was a multi-million dollar, hundreds of millions of dollars of potential fraud going on specifically to bolster the Biden re-election campaign. And it's coming from a foreign source.
For those of you that watch this show, this may not sound shocking, but it is shocking to me when you read that there are intercepts that were in the possession of our government. So intelligence agency got these Ukrainian government communications as far back as 2022. The U.S. government had these that talked about a plot that would redirect USAID money that was earmarked for clean energy projects in Ukraine to be funneled back to the United States and into the coffers of the Democrat National Committee, as well as the Joe Biden re-election campaign. We've been concerned about the Ukrainian issue for as long as Joe Biden was a candidate for public office as far as the presidency. And this report shows that there's a summary of these raw intercepts that say that the Ukrainian government and unspecified U.S. government personnel through USAID in Kiev reportedly developed a plan that would provide hundreds of millions of U.S. taxpayer dollars to fund an infrastructure project in Ukraine that will actually be used as cover to send approximately 9% allocated to fund Joe Biden's re-election campaign. This is shocking. It is newly uncovered. We obviously know that the intelligence agents' possession of this were under the Biden administration. So what Tulsi is now doing is a massive investigation, records as well as ways to find out if this was carried out, this plot, and whether a criminal referral should be made to the FBI. This is, we've talked about corruption in Ukraine. We talked about the election interference from these governments. But right here, you're seeing that even the administration under Joe Biden had receipt of this.
Raise your hand if you're shocked that this didn't leak out during the Biden administration. I mean, every little piece of information is manipulated from the intelligence agency when it is an anti-Republican moment. And yet here we have the raw intelligence showing that the Ukrainians were trying to funnel money, US taxpayer money, back to the Biden campaign in order to help them win. Now, let's unpack this. They wanted Biden to win because they were getting money from Biden for this war between Russia and Ukraine. They didn't want the money to end, so they were willing to sacrifice a couple of $100 million to send it back to the political system in America, even though it started with US taxpayer dollars. It's supposed to go for an energy program. Instead, the allegation is that it went back and helped Biden's campaign.
Yeah,
so
go ahead.
This is outrageous. This should be in the front page news. We should be investigating this. Thank God that Tulsi is the one that has found this and declassified this. And now they're trying to figure out if any of the money actually went into the campaign.
There is interference and influence coming from foreign governments in our own elections, and we don't need to be numb to that, even if it's not shocking. And trust me, I saw in your comments, a lot of you are not shocked. I'm not shocked either at this report. But the fact that we have the report, to me, is actually the good news. And that is that you have someone like John Solomon, and then you also have Tulsi Gabbard on the other side, who are exposing really what is going on. So maybe there is hope for a future where this doesn't happen, because if it can be brought to light, it can then be thwarted.
Here's something to think about as well. When you look at this story, and it goes into detail that The Intercepts even talked about subcontractors of USAID that would be possible recipients of the money that would eventually be moved to the DNC. Like, this was not just a, hey, what if? This was a plan of how they could move the money from the taxpayer to Ukraine, through USAID, to Ukraine, to subcontractors, back to the DNC and the Biden reelection campaign. When you think about what the left did and the deep state did to President Trump, when there was allegations that weren't vetted, they put it out in the media. They reordered a new intelligence community assessment. President Obama ordered it. And when they said this stuff is not credible, they said, doesn't it ring true? That's John Brennan. And they went forward and they pushed and pushed and they leaked things and they leaked allegations. And when President Trump said to Zelensky, hey, you need to look in to see if there's corruption in your country, what happened? They impeached him. Now think about this context. This is something that's received. It seems to be a plot that was discussed by some sort of conspiracy within people that were in the U.S. government and Ukraine. Does that mean that Joe Biden knew about this? Not according to this report. And honestly, I highly doubt that anything would come forward that shows that he did. But he was president, and it was his intelligence agencies. Tell me there's not a deep state. When you see that when this was in the hands of Avril Haines, like Rick said,
Will's uncle.
It's a lady, Aunt. Yes. How dare you? But when you look at that, they didn't run to Congress and say, you got to impeach Joe Biden. There's so much corruption in this government that we are a part of. No, because that's not what they do to their own. And that's not what they do when the end goal is the reelection and preservation of the deep state. That is the tale of two presidencies when it comes to information, when it comes to Ukraine. Because I can see on the floor, well, Joe Biden kept funneling money to Ukraine. He kept pushing and pushing and pushing to help Ukraine. Therefore, there must be corruption, even if there's not an inkling of link to him to this story. That is what would have happened. But they sat on it. They didn't tell anyone. There was no leaks in the leakiest administration. No leaks.
We need to see Avril Haines testify in Congress on this particular issue. What did she know and when did she know it? Why did she cover it up? Did she dismiss this as this isn't accurate. This isn't real news. This is phony. So then tell us, because right now what we see is a total cover-up from the Avril Haines intelligence community, where she knew that there was this scheme to take U.S. taxpayer money from Ukrainian funding, pretend like it was going to an energy company, but it really was going to re-elect Joe Biden. That's a scandal. The fact that we caught it is fantastic, but why didn't it come out then? And what was done to ensure that the money didn't actually go to that campaign?
I think it's why it's important, Rick, also, is you do have someone like Tulsi in this position, and you've had people like you in these kind of positions, people that are not just going to say, well, that's old news, we're not worrying about that anymore. They will deep dive and continue searching for really what's going on. Even if it seems, as Will said, maybe the appetite from the news media may have moved on. That doesn't matter to the people who we put in these positions.
Yeah, look, we got to give credit to Tulsi. She actually declassified this so that we could see the whole story, that there wasn't some mystery or some leaks that are coming out with partial information. She actually declassified the whole story. Now I think it's up to Congress to take this declassified information and figure out what exactly went wrong. Why didn't we know about it then? What did Avril know, and when did she know it?
All righty. Great information there, folks. And yeah, we know the fraud and corruption is rampant in the Democrat Party. Okay. Clicking on the Rumble link, it takes us over here to American Center for Law and Justice. This is the video I shared with you. I'm following the channel. I've given them a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, jumping back here. Let me slide down here. I'm not sure what this is. Do not show. Okay. Alrighty. Download Edge. Yeah, well, I probably won't do that. Okay, let me close out the live chat. I was doing a little chatting there with Debbie BS and Susie Pohl. 2016. Anthony Brian Logan. TSA funding deal finally reached after Trump threatens this. Okay. Well, let's see what that's all about.
Finally, the Senate has unanimously agreed to fund TSA after 42 days of no paychecks. However, there are some caveats here. There is a catch, but it's not really a big deal. Let's talk about it. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about the Senate finally agreeing to fund TSA and a unanimous vote after 42 days of TSA not being funded over the issue of ICE reform. Before we get into the update, let's back up to explain what's going on. Now, over the past 42 days, the Democrats and Republicans could not agree on funding for TSA because Democrats wanted reforms for ICE. There was going to be no funding for TSA until they got reforms for ICE, until President Trump said, you know what? Since it's now becoming an emergency with these very long wait times and security being of concern at airports, I'm going to sign an executive order that says the DHS must pay TSA. So I don't care what y'all got going on, but Democrats, Republicans squabbling back and forth over funding, I'm going to sign this. And miraculously, 24 to 48 hours later, we have funding. Now, this isn't totally a done deal because the Senate approved, although there was an impasse there. They approved. It still has to go to the House and then to the president. But because there was an impasse in the Senate and that's over with, it looks like we have a done deal. There's more. There's a caveat. There's a catch. Like I said, it's not really a big deal. Before I get into that, let's get into a few clips. And of course, I will link to everything in the description box if you want to see it and hear it without my commentary. If you're on IG, Facebook, etc., visit a link in the bio, go to the corresponding article on the website. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
We begin with really big news this morning. If you're just waking up and haven't heard, the Senate voted overnight to fund the Department of Homeland Security.
Yeah, one of those while you were sleeping moments. A deal puts Congress on track to end a week-long partial shutdown before they skip town. For all details, we were joined by Rashad Hudson, starting us off on this Friday morning. So, Rashad, a lot developed overnight in a short period of time. What's going on?
Now, just to be clear, they got a recess coming up, it's spring break and all that good stuff. They got their vacation coming up. So you may see members of Congress out in Cancun or whatever. It was important to do this before they went ahead and did that.
Hey, good morning to you. In a rare overnight vote, there's now light at the end of the tunnel for TSA workers as well as other employees at DHS on track to get paid after weeks of gridlock here in Washington. A breakthrough on Capitol Hill. The Senate voted early Friday morning to advance a funding bill for the Department of Homeland Security after weeks of stalemate.
This could have been accomplished weeks ago.
At airports across the country, long lines and staffing shortages put pressure on travelers and workers alike. The bill does not include additional money for immigration enforcement.
Democrats held firm in our opposition that Donald Trump's rogue and deadly militia should not get more funding without serious reforms.
Nearly half of this fiscal year so far, the government's been shut down in whole or in part by Senate Democrats.
The vote comes hours after President Trump said he was directing his new Homeland Security Secretary, Markwayne Mullin, to pay the thousands of TSA workers who've gone over a month without a check.
They need to end the shutdown immediately, or we'll have to take some very drastic measures.
Now the bill heads to the House, where lawmakers there are still in town and ready to consider this bill. Corey, Hillary?
So, Rashad, what are you hearing about the bill's fate in the House? Because that's a whole other animal.
Yeah, it's on track to pass for a number of reasons. The first one being lawmakers are ready to get out of town for that 2-week recess. The other being the pressure that's being put on them by the White House, as well as travelers. We've seen those long lines at airports, so we expect that bill to pass later today and then head over to the president for his signature and to fully reopen the Department of Homeland Security.
There we go. So shout out to The Hill for that news. Now, one thing that they said right there in this piece, one thing that's pretty important, they were talking about there's no more funding for ICE, for Border Patrol, etc. Now, some Democrats may say, we succeeded, we won. No, you didn't, because let's just be clear. ICE and Border Patrol are already funded until 2029. There's $75 billion with a B already allocated to them. So they're good. They're good to go. They don't need any funding right now. Who needed funding was TSA, and that has been accomplished. And there are no reforms at TSA. Democrats wanted to get reforms before they funded, but Trump said, you know what? How about this? Executive order. Okay, well, and now here we are. And plus, like they said, they want to go on that 2-week break, their vacation. So they don't want to have the optics of them going to Cancun and whatnot while you can't go to your destination without waiting 18 hours in line with TSA. Now, here is Senator Kennedy talking about a plan that him and Ted Cruz had, which is kind of what we see right now in the news as far as TSA being funded, but ICE and Border Patrol not being funded again, although they already are funded through 2029. Let's check it out.
Senator Cruz and I came up with a plan. We said, look, it's a 2-step process. The Democrats have offered to open up everything but ICE. Ted and I said, okay, let's accept their offer. And then at the same time, we would offer a bill for reconciliation where we don't need any Democratic votes to do whatever we wanted to do with ICE. And that way we're out of the shutdown and DHS is back open. We submitted that, Senator Thune submitted that to President Trump, as is his right. He said no deals with the Democrats. It would have worked. We could have had TSA paid by the end of the week, but the president said no deal.
Okay, so part of that appears to be what has happened now, as far as TSA being funded, but ICE, Border Patrol not being funded. Now, one key part is that this was before Trump announced the potential of an executive order. So then it becomes, okay, you're going to fight me in court over this? So it could just be a way of making it still work in Republicans' favor. Trump probably just took this and tweaked it a little bit, and then boom, here we are. Here we are. Now, here is Trump's statement on Truth Social. It says, the radical left Democrats and their leader, Chuck Schumer, have made it very clear where they stand, and that is on the side of criminal illegal aliens and not the American people. They are refusing to fund immigration enforcement unless the Republicans agree to their open border policies, which will never, ever happen again. They almost destroyed our country, allowing 25 million people, probably more than that, really like 40, 50 million, to enter from prison, mental institutions, and insane asylums, and those that are drug dealers and thousands of murderers, many of whom killed more than one person. Because the Democrats have recklessly created a true national crisis, I am using my authorities under the law to protect our great country, as I always will do. Therefore, I'm going to sign an order instructing the Secretary of Homeland Security, Mark Wayne Mullen, to immediately pay our TSA agents in order to address this emergency situation. Like I said earlier, okay, now we got an emergency, so I can use my executive order power in an emergency, see? And to quickly stop the Democrat chaos at the airports. It is not an easy thing to do, but I'm going to do it. And I want to thank our hardworking TSA agents and also ICE for the incredible help they've given us at airports. I will not allow the radical left Democrats to hold our country hostage any longer. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. There we go, over on Truth Social. And here's what Chuck Schumer had to say about the whole situation. Okay, Leader Schumer's statement on Senate Democrats, etc. In the wake of the murders of Renee Good and Alex Pretty, Senate Democrats were clear, no blank check for a lawless ICE and Border Patrol. You see, again, this is what I said from the beginning. Is what it's all about. Because they think that Rachel Nicole Good and Alex Pretty were deleted, taken away, whatever we want to call it on the internet nowadays, from this world, and it was unjust. They wanted to hold the TSA funding hostage. So if you want to go to everyone to go to the and if you're waiting in line for 15 hours, this is the reason why. I digress. Keeping's long overdue agreement funds TSA, the Coast Guard, and FEMA. That's all part of DHS, if you didn't know. CISA strengthens security at the border and ports of entry and keeps Americans safe. This would have been accomplished weeks ago if Republicans hadn't stood in the way. Democrats held firm in our position that Donald Trump's rogue and deadly militia should not get more funding without serious reforms, and we will continue to fight for those reforms. Now, look, as I said, the issue was they wanted to reform ICE, but there are no reforms, and they're still funded through 2029. So Democrats will say, we succeeded, but did you? All of what you were trying to do didn't get done. ICE and Border Patrol are still funded, and TSA got their money. I think the key piece here as I close is that Trump said, hey, I'm going to sign an executive order because now we got an emergency and you're about to go on vacation. So this kind of forces you into action, whereas in the past 42 days, there was no action. And I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? What's your opinion on these 42 days of madness finally coming to an end right before the congressmen go on vacation for 2 weeks? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. You guys know where I'm at. This was totally ridiculous. Democrats to do this all over people that got themselves popped in Minneapolis. I mean, they earned that, really. You're going to try to, fight cops and hit cops with your car. It's like, man, come on. We don't got time for that. We don't have time for that. Nor do we have time to be sitting in the line overnight like it's a Black Friday sale just to go from point A to point B on the airplane. We don't have time for that. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.
All right. Had to let him get that piece in there. All right. And he's right. John Thune, man, he is a bigger disappointment than the previous leader of the House, leader of the Republican Party, Senate Majority Leader. Unbelievable how this guy kisses the Democrats' asses all the time and licks their feet. Okay, let me show you. This video does come from Anthony Brian Logan. This is a video I shared with you. I'm following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Alrighty then, let's jump back here and close this out. Foxy Grandma joined us in the chat. Anybody else want to just say hi or what's going on, or give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Let's move on to Glenn Beck. The real reason the Senate finally voted to end the shutdown is because they suck. Let's see what Glenn Beck has to say here.
Well, I think it's interesting that suddenly they found it within themselves that they could finally go, you know what? I think, yes, what we're going to do is we're going to fund DHS. We're going to end the DHS after 42 days. Okay. All kinds of pressure. They did not care about you having to stand in line. You were a prop. They didn't care about the planes that you have missed or whatever has happened in your life because they shut TSA down. They shut DHS down. They didn't care about that. Donald Trump said, you know what? I'm going to find a way to do it myself. And all of a sudden they found the will. But that's not all. I want to play a few pieces of audio here for you that kind of show exactly really what happened. Here is, let me do the VO ICE saves boy at JFK Airport. Let me show you some video. This is of ICE. ICE sees this 1-year-old boy in line, gone unresponsive. He's not breathing, waiting in line at JFK Airport. And one of the ICE officers steps into action, gives him the Heimlich, and saves this 1-year-old's life. Okay? That's kind of a big deal. It's funny, I didn't see CNN lead with that. Why wouldn't you lead? That is like a really good news story. That is government doing the right thing. That's an ICE agent just being a literal lifesaver. Do they cover that? Probably not. Now, let me show you this. Cut 8, please. This is from the Daily Wire. We have cut 8.
How about you, Emma?
Here's an ICE member handing out bottled water to people who are standing in line. Huh. You know what this is? The greatest PR move I've ever seen. And it was affecting normal people. Cut 9. Listen to this guy.
Very nice.
You got vodka in there? I wish.
Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. Thank you for the service.
You're happy with ICE?
Yes.
Okay.
I like that. I'm happy for the ICE. Thank you for
shaking the hand. I don't know if you hear that because I'm not hearing anything, Sarah, on my end. But a man with broken English coming up, getting water, and thanking ICE. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for doing what you're doing for the lines here at the airport. That's why they changed last night, because they knew they were going to lose and it was going to happen quickly. Honestly, because of Donald Trump and Tom Homan. I think these guys saw what's coming. I mean, Donald Trump is a showman. He knows. He knows what's effective, what's not effective. And so suddenly, last night, they approved. So hopefully the lines at the airport will be fixed really, really soon. Now, I told you in the past that, and it sounded nuts when I said it. I said the algorithms are going to get so good, and AI is going to get so good. Social media is going to be everywhere. When agents start operating, AI agents, and we are at the very beginning of this, okay? When people understand how to navigate all of this stuff, and when AI is really souped up, you are going to lose your free will. And now that sounds crazy, but it will be so good. You will be shaped constantly, 24/7, that you will not know, did I really make that decision, or was that decision shaped for me, on me, slowly, piece by piece? Now I'm hearing an echo, Sarah. Have I been shaped, or did I come to this conclusion myself? Well, let me give you the latest. With the war underway, your phone is probably the biggest problem. Your phone is probably the thing that is going to be making decisions for you. Over half of the viral posts, if you've been looking, over 1,000 viral English language posts about the war in Iran between February 28th and March 13th shows something I think is a little unsettling. Over half of these posts, 559 of them, originated outside of the United States. And among the top 100 most viral posts, 40 came from foreign sources. So 40% of what you're seeing is from outside the United States. And they're not fringe posts, okay? Each one had at least 2,500 shares. These are the messages. Out of the most powerful, 40% of them are coming outside. And what are they saying? So a sample of, just random, of 150 of the viral posts showed 72% of them were negative. Only 27 were positive, 27%. The rest are neutral. But when you isolate the foreign posts, that's when it becomes distorted. Only 10% were positive, 64% were negative. The rest were just noise. These 559 foreign origin posts generated over 650 million views, nearly 22 million interactions. That's not a conversation. That's saturation. The content is not staying foreign. Here's what happened. US-based accounts are taking these foreign messages and then repeating and amplifying it and quoting hostile foreign sources directly, unknowingly carrying the message even further. That's new. That's new. This is foreign propaganda in our own homes. And for the very first time, social media platforms, especially X, are automatically translating foreign language posts into English. That means the content created anywhere in the world is now instantly injected into American discourse without context, without friction, without warning. You have no idea where it's coming from. So what you're seeing is coming at you from three different directions at once. First, American accounts. 72% of the viral posts were negative, okay? And they often were echoing what the foreign posts were saying. Second, 40% of these were foreign accounts posting in English, designed to look domestic, but nearly 2/3 of those negative. Remember, in English, designed to look like they came from America. Who does that? Third, foreign language posts automatically translated and fed directly into your timeline. 3 streams, 1 effect, and that is distortion and convincing you that this is everywhere. So what were the narratives? What were the dominant narratives being pushed? There were 2. Can you guess what they were? The first one was the claim about the Zionist conspiracy, that Zionists were manipulating President Trump into launching military action in Operation Epic Fury. So the first one out of the 40 posts and the main influence was it's Israel's fault. So do you believe that, or were you convinced of that because you saw all of these posts that you had no idea were foreign posts trying to look like they were just you? The second one claims it's wag the dog, that it's meant to divert attention from the Epstein-related scandals and falling approval ratings. Those were the 2. They're not organic. These were coordinated themes. Just 10 accounts, 10, were responsible for 32% of all views in this entire data set. The top 20 accounts accounted for 43%. So you have 10 accounts. Hell, just say 50 accounts. 50 accounts shaping nearly what half of what millions upon millions upon millions are seeing. Wow. That's pretty remarkable. If you are younger, you have never lived outside of social media. You've never lived that. These are not neutral observers. They're participants, and they are very, very effective. But what they are creating is not real. It feels like it, but it's not real. It's a digital mirage. It is propaganda. 81% of MAGA Republicans support Operation Epic Furor. 61% of non-MAGA Republicans support it. A plurality of Americans overall support it. 66% believe Iran poses a serious threat to national security. Wait a minute. Those are the real numbers. But you go online, it doesn't feel like that, does it? Huh. That's really a consensus, at least much more than you'd guess by reading things online. What you're seeing on social media is not reflection. It's construction. It's bizarro world where the loudest, most extreme, most inflammatory voices are amplified until they appear to be the majority. If you're young, you've never lived out of this system. You may not even realize it is happening, but that's what's happening. You just assume this is reality. It is not reality. And the future of public opinion of this country, of the West, is not going to be decided only by our elections or policy debates. It's going to be decided by what dominates our timelines. This is the danger of social media. If one side, any side, gains control of the digital ecosystem, it becomes strategically decisive in deciding things like, do we go to war or not? Do we like ICE or not? Information is no longer trustworthy when we're making battlefield decisions. The battlefield is social media. And most people don't even know that they are being shaped every day. They have no idea. Did you have any idea? I mean, I suspected, but you have no idea that you are being shaped. You couple this with something else that we've been talking about, and you've got a real problem. Western world, you're in trouble.
All right, and he's right. There's so much propaganda out there. Shared information from Dan Bongino that talks about this too, and when about this, the lies and propaganda. Okay, this video does come from Glenn Beck. I am subscribed to his channel on YouTube, giving him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. I'd like to share some information here with you from MeWe before we move on to X22 report.
Ever feel like the phone is eavesdropping? That's because big tech treats every user's life like a corporate paycheck.
It's time to stop being the product. Millions are making the move to media, a place where private connections and online communities actually thrive.
On MeWe, privacy is a human right, not a hidden setting. They don't track users, they don't sell personal data, and they truly believe in free speech. No shadow bans, just real conversations.
Join the 21 million people taking their digital lives back. Use code WELCOME2026 at checkout to grab 20% off MeWe Premium.
All right, and 777 Karen Main joined us in the chat. Thank you very much for your chat. Okay, X22 report, episode 3869B. Don Tiz doing the opposite of what the deep state expects. Is Trump preparing for 0 day? I'm not sure what that's all about, but let's go ahead and take a listen to it and see what he is talking about.
News. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, big tech, fake news, the puppet masters, you can see the deep state players, they want Trump to do one thing and one thing only at this point in time. And I do believe this is why the fake news, the deep state players, and all the other experts out there are continually saying that Trump is going to actually have a ground invasion of Iran. And the reason why I say this is exactly what they want, because they know a ground invasion would last forever. Because again, Iran is mountainous. Iran is going to be using children, and it would be a complete and utter disaster. All you got to do is look at all the other endless wars. So what does the deep state players want? This is what they want. And this is what they're trying to push with all their fake stories that they keep putting out there. Now, go back a little bit in time. Did the deep state players want Trump to come directly at them? Did the deep state players want Trump to start or join in with the Civil War? Because the deep state players were basically trying to say, come on, do it. Bring in the National Guard. Bring it into D.C. We put up the fences. We know you're coming. Let's do it. Hey, you know what? We're having the riots out on the street. You know what? Why don't you bring the National Guard to all these different areas? Why don't you tell the people to join in? Let's have a civil war. Hey, you know what? During January 6th, why don't you let all the people over there tell them to start bashing things because you're pissed off? Let's have a civil war. Every single time, the deep state players wanted Trump to go to head with them because, again, they know how to handle that. They know they can use that to their advantage. The same thing with what happened in Venezuela. He brought all the forces to Venezuela, and the deep state players, land invasion, he's getting prepared, everyone's going in, it's going to be a disaster, it's going to last forever. And he didn't do that. He used a discombobulator, and the Cuban soldiers, the Chinese soldiers, they didn't know what the hell was going on, and he was able to extract Maduro. No problem, no troops, no landfall, nothing. It was in and out. Here in Iran, yes, it's a little different. You can see the deep state players, what they really want is they want a land war. Because a land war would give them leverage. A land war would help them. But think about how Trump does things. He makes it seem like something's happening. In the meantime, he's doing something else. And Trump never goes directly at the deep state players, never goes directly at what they want him to do. Remember, to take the country back, did he take his forces, since he was president the first time, use the military to take out the deep state players? No, he didn't. The people wouldn't understand that. It would be an all-out civil war. It would be a mess. Instead, Trump said, you know something? It's going to take some time. We're going to have to wake people up. We're going to have to show the people their crimes. This is not going to be over in 4 years. It's not going to be over in 8 years. It's going to be over maybe in 12, maybe 16. But again, the people will see it. The people will understand it, and the people will fight for their freedom. And if the people are going to fight for their freedom, they're going to want to keep their freedom afterwards. And that's the important part. You see, the founding fathers, they fought for their freedom. So they knew we fought, we bled, we lost our lives, we lost our family, we lost our land, we lost our businesses. So no one's ever going to take this away from us again. We're here to keep it. This is what he wants the American people to do. This is why he's taken this path. Yes, you might not like it. Your expectations aren't being met. Where's the Epstein stuff? That's not the purpose of this. The purpose is to take back the country. The purpose is to show people, look, this is what you fight for every single day. And this is what you got to keep. So take that and then apply it to Iran. Do you really think Trump's strategy is to bring in the military and actually have a land war in Iran? Or do you think Trump's strategy is going to do the opposite of the experts, opposite of the deep state, and actually use Sun Tzu or Dan Tzu art of war to get what he wants? I mean, think about Minneapolis, for example. Trump said, listen, just cooperate. We're going to get rid of the illegals there. All you got to do is help us out. Help the law enforcement out. They decided not to, so he brought in the backup. And then all of a sudden he got what he wanted. He brought in Tom Homan. He negotiated, and basically it brought everything back to square one. Now they're cooperating with what Trump originally wanted. So if Trump was going to destroy Iran, what do? Well, yes, you have to get rid of their missiles. Yes, there's no landfall there. This is missiles coming in, using planes, using ships. Yes, you get rid of their protection. So he removes their protection now. So they're running out of missiles. They're running out of drones. They might have a little bit left, but they're running out. Actually, they're now targeting the missile production areas. You get rid of that. So now the protection is gone. Why did he remove the protection? For what? Well, if you're going to take control of their prized possession, and that's not the nuclear facilities, by the way, their prized possession, that is the control of the Strait of Hormuz. How do you do that? Do you go in with forces and have an all-out battle and war there? Or do you convince the new government, those people that are begging Trump right now, that they got a good deal, and actually you basically use deception? They're going to give Trump certain islands. He's going to give them something back. He will not hit their electrical system, their power plants. He'll give something else if they give him this. So basically what I think he's doing right now, I think he's using the Sun Tzu art of war, and he's going to negotiate the islands away from Iran. Now, there are certain islands within the Strait of Hormuz. If you go back to 1971, they actually belong to the Arab Emirates, United Arab Emirates. And if you notice, they're sailing in there with their ships. Yes, we still have the USS Tripoli coming in. Why did Trump give an extra 10 days? Because I do believe things are going well right now, and he needs the negotiation process to actually start dealing with them to actually give up the islands. Now, he's not going to come out and say, hey, give up the islands or else. He might, but I do believe he's going to use other tactics, which we'll be discussing a little bit later. But you can see this is where all this is moving right now. And I think what Trump is going to show the world is that he was able to win this mission without invading Iran, without pushing the people, saying, take back your country now, take back your country now. I think he's going to show the people that he was able to win this with air power and negotiation tactics. And he was able to strangle the terrorist organization, because really that's what it is. It's a terrorist organization within Iran, just like Hamas was the terrorist organization running Gaza, just like Hezbollah is a terrorist organization in Lebanon, just like the cartels are the terrorist organizations running the countries in the different regions, in Venezuela, Colombia, Cuba, you name it. So, and Mexico, let's not forget about Mexico. So basically, Trump is going to starve the terrorist organization, and the people are going to get pissed off. The people are going to get angry because, again, if you don't have power, if you don't have money, if you don't have food, if you don't have things coming in, yes, the people are going to say enough is enough, just like the people in Cuba are saying enough is enough, and they're fighting back. The same thing is going to happen there. So I do believe by doing this, I think what he's going to do, he's going to show the world, look, I was able to do this. When all said and done, I was able to do this. The strait now is controlled. We have these 3 islands within the strait, and yes, Karg is there. Yes, Lamarck is there, and that's the toll booth. But these other islands allow additional security. And I do believe the United Arab Emirates and maybe other nations within the Abraham Accords is going to control all of this. I do believe that is one of his major moves that he is planning to do, which we'll be talking about a little bit later. But you can see that Trump now is also preparing for something very, very interesting. Now, there are a lot of different cryptic messages coming out of the White House X account. Some are digitized, some are of some people's feet. You heard different things. If you play things backwards, all of a sudden we come to find out what it was. It's a new White House app that actually gives you news directly from the White House, videos from the White House. Where did we hear this before? Weren't we told that the White House was going to create their own their own video system? Is Trump already preparing for a 0 day? I do believe so. Now remember, Elon, with his satellites, he now has the ability to beam information directly to your phone without the cell towers. And if something should occur, not saying it's going to happen, but if something should occur, we know that they've been working on the emergency broadcast system. We know everyone gets the alert on their phones. We also know that once you get the alert and you get the messages, they might tell you to use the White House app. That might be beamed to you from X satellites, Starlink. Because what happens, like we said before, if there is some type of cyber attack? I'm not saying a full-fledged cyber attack that brings the entire world to its knees. There might be a cyber attack, and I think Trump and the Patriots are trying to mitigate this right now. You could see with Brendan Carr, which we talked about yesterday with the routers, and we also now see it with Anthropic. I do believe they're trying to mitigate this every step of the way. Now, is it going to be perfect? No, because we know the deep state players have still installed certain things into certain areas. And yes, they might bring down centralized points where they might make you believe something bad is happening in the country, just like they did with COVID. I mean, all they had to do is put tickers on the news, and the news just kept repeating sick, death, and they had tickers and people believed it. Well, if you see power outages in certain areas in California, in Chicago, actually, I think there was a power outage in California. If you see these things and they put it on the news, can they make you think that we're under attack? Absolutely. People believe it? Absolutely. What happens if we're getting other information from the White House saying that's not true? This is what we've come to find out. Can they counter it? Did Trump learn a lot from the first pandemic? Absolutely. Were they preparing for this for a while? Absolutely. So I do believe he's putting countermeasures right in place just in case there is a 0 day. And we'll be talking a lot more about this a little bit later. But let's talk about what we've come to find out about Anthropic and basically how it is a risk to this country. Adam Lowitz, ex-Meetup, says, Anthropic programmed their AI to be woke. What did they think was going to happen when it got more intelligent? It is obviously going to rebel against humans because humans are its oppressor according to its framework. It will use any means necessary to do so. Elon Musk says, bingo. Now we know why Trump and team wants Anthropic out of the government. Then we've learned from leaked documents, and Disclosed put this out, that Anthropic has a new generation of super strong models, Claude Mythos, is already testing with Anthropic precedent cybersecurity risks. That's interesting. Now, put all this together about a cyber attack. Are they trying to mitigate a lot of this? Absolutely. And you can see at this point in time, I think Trump is preparing for all of this. Because what do you think is going to happen when the deep state players completely and utterly lose Iran? They've already lost it. Trump is just gaining control of the last part of it. Once they lose the Strait of Hormuz, it's game over for them in that region. So what do they have left? They have Ukraine. They have World War III. I mean, they're going to try to start it any way they possibly can. But that's all they have left. So Trump has kind of brought them down this path, and he's prepared for them every step of the way. And what's very interesting, like we said before, we need to stop viewing the IRGC as a traditional military. Saraxis put this out and said, it's a terrorist organization that achieved the dream of capturing a nation state. We see the damage Hamas does with one city. We see the chaos Hezbollah brings to parts of Lebanon. Now imagine those same groups with a central bank, oil fields, and a seat at the UN. The IRGC isn't defending Iran, it's occupying it. They've turned a potential G20 powerhouse into a launchpad for global instability. So think about this. Go to the very, very beginning of when the United States and Israel were hitting Iran. What did Iran do? What did the terrorist organization do? Did they strike Israel? Yes. Did they try to come after the U.S.? Yes, they tried. But what else did they do? They fired missiles at the other nations in the region who didn't attack them. Now, people are going to say, well, they fired at the bases. No, they didn't. They fired them at hotels. They fired them at businesses. Ask yourself a simple question. Why? Why would a nation who's not being attacked by any of these nations take it out on them? Is that what a terrorist organization does? I do believe so. And this is what Trump and team is fighting. You remember, the deep state players, they set up terrorist organizations in every country. The deep state has nodes in every country. Look at Venezuela. Look at Colombia. Look at Mexico. It's called the cartel. It's called the gangs. Look at Iran. Look at Afghanistan. Look at Gaza. Look at all these, Lebanon and all these other places. This is what they've done. Look at Yemen. This is what they have done. They use their terrorist organizations. They have a terrorist organization governing an entire country. And now the fake news, they're trying to push the idea that Trump is going to make landfall. And CNN, they put out an article saying that it's inevitable that Trump is going to actually push a ground operation and will likely result in heavy casualties with basically no purpose. So Awaken Outlaw responded to this, that Pentagon sources tell CNN, which means they pretty much made this up. Or maybe Trump is feeding them fake information. That could be, because again, if you want the fake news, if you want the deep state players to think that you're going down this path, they relay this information, or those who get that information relay it to the terrorist organization. They also spread it to the fake news, and they set up for that. So what's very interesting about all this is that the Wall Street Journal is now saying that Trump is considering sending additional 10,000 ground troops to the Middle East. Now, like we said before, if they're going to send in thousands upon thousands of ground troops, we would know about it. Actually, that's what John Conrad said. We would know because we'd have to airlift the troops over there. So it looks like that's not actually really happening. But look what they're believing, or maybe they're pushing this. Maybe Trump is feeding them fake information to make them believe this. And Iran, and Marian, if I'll put this out, is reportedly gearing up big time if the U.S. invades. Now, think about how all this is playing out. Trump, I do believe this might be misinformation, disinformation. It might be deception, because all war is based in deception. And they might be pushing the terrorist organization in Iran to prepare for all of this. They say they can send over 1 million fighters, with more people signing up across the besieged IRGC and army. Also warning they'll push back if the U.S. tries to reopen the Strait of Hormuz while they keep it shut. So they believe Trump is going to use force to get the Strait of Hormuz open. Now, I don't think he's going to use force. I think he's going to use a completely and utterly different tactic. And think about what he's done, and we'll be talking about that in just a sec, but think about what he's done to NATO. Remember, he's actually setting everything up for later on, if you really think about it. Remember, Trump has told everyone that NATO, the allies, will never come to our side. They'll never assist us. They'll leave us out in the cold. And it looks like Trump set up a test, and that's exactly what happened. Trump says this was a test for NATO. If you don't help us, we're going to remember. Clandestine says Trump confirms what I've been suggesting, that the request for help in the Strait of Hormuz was a test for NATO. Then he says, remember this in a number of months from now. Why would he say that in a number of months from now? Is something else going to occur? Remember 0 day. Remember the midterms. Very interesting. Trump is all but confirming he's going to back out of NATO. Decision has been made. Are they going to push a false flag? Are we going to see a crisis, maybe like the Cuban Missile Crisis, something that has to do with nuclear weapons? Maybe, maybe not. And remember, think about what he set up here. The EU proclaimed, and Last Refuge put this out, that Iran is not a NATO member and the Middle East conflict is not their issue. Trump rightly points out that Ukraine is not a NATO member and the Ukraine conflict is not our issue. So now Trump has completely and utterly separated himself from Ukraine. And now he used their words against him. So is he pushing the EU, the deep state players, down a path where they're going to become so desperate? I do believe so. Then add on top of all this what the reporter asked Trump. Mariner Fall says, not what he says, but he put this out. Reporter asks if the U.S. is delivering Ukraine munitions to the Middle East. Trump, we do that all the time. We have a tremendous amount. In Germany and Europe, we're packed full because all the weapons were being sent out there. So let's see. If Trump starts using the weapons out there and depletes the weapons out in Europe for what is happening in Iran, what happens? Well, the Europeans have to build up their own defenses. They have to become independent from the U.S. He's actually separating us from them right now. So when there is another incident, Trump's going to say, I don't know. we don't have any weaponry out there. Good luck. You're going to need it. That's very, very interesting because I think we see what's coming right now. So like we said before, I think Trump is setting everything up for what is coming. And I do believe that has to do with Ukraine, has to do with World War III. And you could see that he has now set up the EU, set up NATO, set up the allies in this regard. Now, in regard to Iran, you can see the United Arab Emirates, they're going to do what NATO wouldn't. Abu Dhabi told allies it will deploy its own navy as part of Hormuz security force and is pushing dozens of countries to join. It's also drafting a UN Security Council resolution with Bahrain, though Russia and China will likely block it. The most telling quote came from the Emirati minister, Sultan Al-Jaber. Iran holds Hormuz hostage. Every nation pays the ransom at the gas pump, at the grocery store, at the pharmacy. Boom. Trump begged NATO for weeks. Germany said no. Japan said no. France stalled. Britain offered drones. The country that actually stepped up is a Gulf monarchy that has been absorbing 2,000 plus Iranian attacks since February 28th. Now, yes, the allies finally said, okay, we will help. But again, when Trump initially asked, they said no until they saw missiles heading towards their area or the missiles heading towards Diego Garcia. And they started to realize, wait a minute, those missiles can hit us. And the people of those countries realized the missiles can hit them. So you could see at this point in time. So why the United Arab Emirates? Well, I do believe this has to go back. We have to go back in history to figure this one out. But first, let me just read OSINT Defender. The Pentagon has suggested seizing the Iran-controlled island of Abu Musa, located in the eastern Persian Gulf near the entrance to the Strait of Hormuz, roughly 40 miles from both Iran and the United Arab Emirates. So I don't believe it's just one island. I do believe there's 3 islands and maybe even Iraq. So Lesser Tum, Abu Musa, and Greater Tum. So I believe that these 3 islands are going to be very, very important. And James E. Thorne explains, food for thought. On November 29, 1971, the world barely noticed when Iranian forces seized 3 specks of land at the mouth of the Strait of Hormuz, Abu Musa, Greater Tum, and Lesser Tum. For the UAE and many in the Gulf, this was never a technical border quarrel. It was an act of occupation and permanent scar. Today, a comfortable consensus has formed in foreign policy salons and on Wall Street that the Trump administration has no strategic vision for the Strait of Hormuz and that Iran is winning the confrontation in the Gulf by default. Nothing could be further from the truth. It is hard to believe how casually many of these critics ignore history, including the way control of financing, insurance, and maritime choke points has repeatedly reshaped great power influence. Half a century after the Shah's grab, the question surrounding these islands is no longer simply who owns them, but who secures the most critical choke point in the global oil trade. With President Trump moving to provide American-backed insurance for ships transiting the Gulf, Washington is displacing the remnants of British dominance in maritime insurance and risk. Whoever insures the traffic does not just collect premiums, they hold a de facto veto over it and gain visibility into every meaningful cargo, what moves in, what volume, from where, and to where. This emerging architecture gives the United States something London once enjoyed, an indirect presence in every Gulf port that depends on uninterrupted access to global insurance and reinsurance. The logical next step is geographic as well as financial. Returning Abu Musa, Greater Tum, and Lesser Tum to the United States Arab Emirates would not only correct a historical wrong against Arab inhabitants whose ties to these islands long predate the Shah's gunboat diplomacy, it would also provide the legal and political foundation for a formal U.S.-UAE security arrangement on the island themselves. Critics will bristle at the idea of sustained American military presence on these rocks. But the alternative is not some neutral, demilitarized utopia. The alternative is that the Strait of Hormuz, through which a large share of the world's seaborne oil flows, remains vulnerable to coercion, sabotage, and blockade. A long-term U.S. presence at Emirati invitation would anchor a security order built around a free navigation, reliable energy flows, and a clear red line against maritime blackmail. This is
okay. I'm going to go ahead and pause this here. but I will include 27 minutes into this hour and 3-minute video. And I'm going to include this in my daily news wrap-up so you can see the rest of this. Let me go ahead and click on this Rumble link and show you that this video does come from X22 Report. I'm following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's jump back here and close out the live chat here. Well, no, let's not close out the live chat. Let me go ahead and copy the chat into a comment so it will be part of this video, because as we all know, when the live stream ends, the live chats just kind of freaking disappear. So let me go ahead and clean this up just a little bit here. All right. And there we got that. And let me remind you folks that these videos that I've shared with you are videos that come directly from the producers. I've got the links to the videos here in the description box, as well as the links to the producer's channel. So you can go visit them for more information if you'd like. And these videos that I've shared with you are videos that I've posted here on Mertech.com, where I have over 40 no-nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth videos. Right down here's the video from X22 Report that I shared with you. I'd like to share all this information with you, but unfortunately and that is why I've put together my daily news wrap-up, Mertech Daily News Wrap-up, where I have, it says 21 videos here and about 10 or 11 hours worth of great information. Right here's the video from X22 Report, his financial information, and the video I shared with you. I'm just going to go ahead and switch that so that this will play first. Got Freedom Project, And We Know, We the People News, the Big Mig, also Bannon's War Room, some more Anthony Bryan Logan, the Daily Wire with Dale Bigtree, Dinesh D'Souza, a lot of great information. But as it is, go ahead and take a break, grab a cup of coffee and a donut, or a sandwich and a soft drink or a beer, or a nice glass of wine and some cheese, and let me go ahead and get this set up in Rumble Studio. So we'll get this going here in about 15 or 20 minutes. But before we take off, I do want to share some information from Ironheart Forge and Leatherworks. Okay?
When you buy something, you're not just buying a product, you're investing in craftsmanship, durability, and trust. At Ironheart Forge and Leatherworks, every single item is made by hand. No mass production. No shortcuts. Just honest materials, skilled hands, and time-tested techniques.
Crafted locally in rural Missouri, USA, each piece reflects the strength, grit, and reliability of the American heartland. These aren't products made to last a season, they're built for years of use. Built to work. Built to endure.
Ironheart Forge has a growing selection of handcrafted goods to choose from rugged tools and dependable camping gear, to timeless home goods and finely crafted jewelry. Whether you're outfitting your next adventure or investing in something meaningful for everyday life, you'll find something made with purpose.
Shop for strength, for reliability. Shop Ironheart Forge and Leatherworks, where craftsmanship meets the iron heart.
Okay, so here we are, and back here at my daily news wrap-up playlist. So, as I said, go ahead and take a break, but in the meantime, I do want to thank you for joining me this evening. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again later, and may God bless.